Hey guys, welcome back to Thriving in Love podcast, the podcast that challenges the status quo so couples can thrive as their most authentic selves. Today on the show, we have a very special guest. Please welcome my best friend's sister, Julia Sotas Mattis. She is a Access Consciousness facilitator and the host of Trophy Wife podcast. Julia, welcome. I'm so excited to dive into your world today.
I've been looking forward to this. I was so excited to meet you. And when my sister told me about all of the alternative, diverse, dynamic, unusual, wonderful things that you've done in your relationship, I was so excited that you were doing these types of things that most people don't do. And, we just don't have the education, the courage, the vulnerability, the willingness to lose our partners. And, when you have those things, you can create a really great relationship. So it was really fun to see your TV, that when you went on TV about it, and just all the different things that you've done in your relationship. So it's very, very inspiring. And, I was excited to talk to you about all those cool things.
Oh my gosh, that means the world to me coming from you, because you're like the queen of this world of like challenging what is normal. Something that I love that I heard in your podcast was you strive to basically be the glitch in the matrix for people when you meet them. Because I love what you said is that when you say something that's so out there, like something as simple as, what do you do? I'm a trophy wife. Something so simple like that can, like you said, is like it can expand someone's entire universe in the blink of a statement. So like, please talk to me about how this came to be. What's like the start of Trophy Wife and how did you get started in this world?
And origins. Yeah.
The origin story. Yes.
Well, I have always been somebody who, when I was a kid, like 4 years old, 5 years old, I would look around and I'd be like, what are they all doing? Like, everybody's kind of not living life the way that they could. Like, I could see, like, as like a little kid, that people were like purposely, subconsciously, however you want to put it, like screwing up their lives, going into, the drama of things, the difficulty of things, the hardship of things. And I was like, what's going on? Why are they doing that? And I couldn't understand it. As like a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old, I was like, I got to figure this out. Like, and I definitely spent a lot of of my life, I joke, like you go to kindergarten and you're like this happy, alive being, and they're like, sit in your chair, stay straight, don't color outside of the lines, be normal, get in the line, face the front, and it doesn't work. Maybe it works for like a couple people, but not really. It doesn't actually invite you to be you. And that's something that I talk about a lot, is the willingness to be you. And you don't have to be famous. You don't have to do it, in this level that we all think we have to do for it to have any importance. If you be you in your circle, or like just with the people that are around you, with yourself, and you're being weird and having fun, you are changing the world, because it's going to go out and people, you're inviting people to be more of them. And just like one happy person who is having too much fun to notice when other people are judging them is enough to change a whole lot of things on a real level. Like, I inspire that person and then they inspire that person, but also like on an energetic level too. And so I was just always fascinated by, I remember like being 5 and I had this game, and I like would just play it by myself around the house, and it was like these little scissors, and I would like walk around my house pretending that there was like a layer of paper at like where my waist would be, and I would like cut it with the scissors like through on my imaginary layer of paper. And I'd be like, if I turn right, is that because I'm choosing to turn right? Or like, is that my destiny? Like, is that my fate that I definitely have to turn right? And I was like, it's so tiny, thinking about how all of this worked. And so when
You're a very evolved being who like came into like a beautiful light being that just like came into this world with this
Oh,
like
thank you.
already this certain level of
Oh,
consciousness.
oh, thank you. Yeah. And I just really was like, okay, so what's going on? What's happening here? And so I studied all through like from about 12 to 18 years old. I studied a lot of things. I studied Christianity, I studied Buddhism in college. I did tarot card readings for people. I, did the Course of Miracles. I did all kinds of healing modalities. And I just was like, this is great stuff. Like, I loved what they talked about, but I'm like, I don't really get the tools. Like, where's the actions that I can take to actually make this my life? Like, it's so great. And I want to be like that. But I was still, I wasn't totally immune to it. I was to trying to be right, to trying to be perfect, to trying to fit into reality. I was, very much trying to prove that I was a good person, a good girl, a good student, a good daughter, a good everything. And then I came across these tools called Access Consciousness, and I've been doing them for 13 years because they're just my fave, because they take all of that stuff and give you the tools to institute it. And they really, really, really work. So I started that when I was 19 and I'm now 32. And it's the only thing I've ever done or wanted to do. I just love it. It's so, because there's just always more to change and evolve, and working with people with these tools. And if I didn't have these tools, even with all the spirituality I had done, I know I would for sure be on prescription medication for anxiety, depression, something. I know for sure I would have, because I struggled with that stuff a lot. So that's sort of the groundwork, are these tools called Access Consciousness. And then we can get into Trophy Wife a little bit more too. But that's sort of how my journey started.
Wow, that's amazing. So I'm actually more curious about like what do you see as the biggest difference between like these other modalities that you've done? Like I know you said it's more practical, more grounding, but like how so?
That's a really good question, actually. For me, the difference is the tools and the questions. So one of the things that we do, and I'm sure other modalities have different versions of this. I just love the way that this kind of works. It just works for
Yeah.
me. We all have something different that works for us. This just like totally worked for me. But it was like one of the things that we talk about a lot is asking questions. If you're having a bad day and you're at your computer and everything is, not working, and you're like, this is so terrible, then you're going to obviously create more terrible. And I actually don't really see positive thinking working that well for people either, because
Same.
yeah, cool. Yeah, that's the other side of the same coin. That's not actually going to work. But if
It's
you ask,
spiritually bypassing all of the realness of being a human, but
that's exactly how I feel about it too. That's so interesting. Basically, I was like, I like this because it teaches you to ask questions. So one of the first questions that I learned was, what would it take for blank to show up? And so that was for me something very basic that I could use. And I would go, okay, so what would it take for more adventure to show up in my life? Because I was in college, I was bored, it wasn't challenging enough for me. So I started asking that, and I actually had a notebook, and every day I would write in my notebook 10 questions, and I would like put the date, and then I would write, okay, well, what would it take for this to show up? Or what would it take for this to show up? And I would write 10 questions a day. And I found, when I moved out of that apartment, I found the notebook when I was packing, and I read through it. Like, it was about 2 years after I finished the notebook. I was like, oh man, like I have everything in the notebook. I was
wow.
like, except for I didn't have $1 million, but now I have $1 million, so it's
But you
fine. It
have a
just took a little
$1 million mindset, right? Which is the first thing that is required in order to call in $1 million, which is what everybody is like
Yep.
not understanding about manifestation is like, how come I don't have this? How come I don't have that? Well, do you have the mindset to call it in? Do you have the behaviors? Do you have like you
Yep.
said, when these negative thoughts come in, do you have the power of choice to choose what thoughts you're keeping and what thoughts you're letting go of. And do you have the freedom to break free from the societal
Yep.
conditioning that is telling you that you need to hustle in order to be a millionaire?
Yep. Exactly. Exactly. So
Wow.
I looked at the notebook and I was like, what the fuck? Like I was like, I have everything in this notebook. Like this is
So
like
cool.
pages and
Yeah.
pages and pages and pages
Yeah.
of things. And I
Wow.
was at that time so happy and so much had changed and everything was coming together for me. And I was like, holy fucking shit, like this really works. So I
Yeah.
like the questions because even if you're not being the energy to bring what you're asking for into your life when you ask, as soon as you do ask, as I call them, the quantum entanglements of the universe do start to rearrange themselves so that you can bring it in. And
I
so
agree. Yeah.
it's like a kind and soft and really like workable way to do that. So it's a lot about questions and like asking how does it get better? Like how can things get better than this? And the other thing too is just really realizing how psychic we are and that none of our negative thoughts belong to us. Like
Yeah.
none. Not one.
Yeah.
We're just so psychic and then we pick up on something like that and then we start to create our life story around it and destroy our life based on it, but it was never ours in the first place. So we have a lot of processes to get rid of where you bought that as yours and then started destroying your life based on it.
Wow, I love how you said that. So, let's go into trophy wife. So it sounds like this is what you needed to realize in order to become a trophy wife. Because I know for me, a lot of my like resistance behind receiving from my husband, from the universe, has been a lot to do with the worthiness. But what you just said is our core is light, love, positive. Like
Yeah.
every single negative thought that comes, it's our responsibility to say, no, thank you. Thank you for coming, but no, thank you. And keep
Yep.
returning to that. But like and like, how can we keep having more? Again, ties to worthiness. So, like, have you
Yep.
had to work through that at all in order to be who you are today?
Totally, totally. It's a work in progress. I mean, so I'm sure you've heard this story when you listen to the podcast, but the trophy wife thing came about because I was like hands on my hips, like I would never be a trophy wife. Like that's gross. And
Yeah.
I've always had my own business. I've always made my own money, and there was a lot of like independence. And I'm like, you know, my point of view is why would you want to be independent when you can be in communion with all things? Like you don't want to be an
Oh,
independent
I love
woman.
that. Yeah.
That's not what you're shooting for. You want to be a part of everything and a contribution to everything and receive from everything. So I was doing a lot of like I'm independent and I'm a facilitator and I make my own money and I can do it on my own, and there was so much force behind that. And we could get into the whole thing about like the 1960s and 70s and the feminist movement and the good
Yeah.
parts of that and the really damaging parts of that, which I'm sure
Yeah.
we probably agree on, how that all went down. But I really, we were raised with this idea of independence. So I was on a class with Gary Douglas, he's 82 years old. He's the coolest guy in the world. And he started Access Consciousness by channeling it. I was like, he was talking about how he was meeting with some lawyers and he said some crazy stuff. And I said, why'd you say that crazy stuff to them? And he's like, because I had to set the scene. I needed them to know not to deal with me like a normal person because I don't do normal and I'm not going to deal with this in a normal way. I was like, oh, that's so cool. And I was like, how do I invite people to treat me from a different point of view, not from a normal point of view? And he's like, when they ask you what you do, tell them that you're a trophy wife. And I was like, what? Trophy wife. And he's like, well, you have a rich husband. And I'm like, yeah, but I can do it on my own. And so he was that was like his very masterful way of being like, Julia, like, you can receive, it's not wrong to
Mm.
receive. And sometimes even when my husband would give me something, like you said with the worthiness, it would feel like I was taking rather than receiving. And we talk a lot about that, like the difference, because a lot of people do take. Like we
Yes.
take in a lot of ways, and we take, and like I am always looking at like, okay, was I taking or was I receiving? And sometimes it's very hard to look at the ugly things that I'm doing, but I'm pretty good at it now, but
Yeah.
it's very hard sometimes. But there's a lot
But
of
it's also
taking.
so human. And like I
That's
don't want us to like try to be these perfect beings. I think that authenticity is so much more fun than being
it is.
perfect.
I
And like
completely
the
agree.
way that like I call myself out or my husband calls me out, and that honestly like adds to the desire in our relationship so much
That's
more than
so
like if I was
cool.
just perfect little wife, you know?
Yes, absolutely. That's so exciting. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had to look at, one thing too is where we really take as human beings is from the earth. Like, and my point
Oof.
of view is like
Yes.
the earth has a consciousness, and we should actually be asking the earth, "Hey earth, are you cool if I build my house here?" Like, "Hey earth, are you
Yeah.
cool if we build this road here?" And the earth would say yes a lot of the
Yeah.
time, but since we
Yeah.
never ask, we're just destroying things. And I
Mhm.
hope that one day the earth has a big earthquake and kicks us all off.
Well, honestly, it's happening now with like, global warming and all of these like natural disasters. Like, this is the sign that Earth is getting a little pissed off.
Totally.
And not in the sense of like, hey, treat me better, but like, hey, if you don't treat me better, you're not going to exist. So you better get your shit together if you still want a home here.
Totally, totally. And like, I know this sounds pessimistic, but I'm not like a big believer in humanity. Like, I'm like, if we all go away, like,
Same. I freaking
that'll be
hate people.
cool. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I was on a plant medicine ceremony once, and my first question to God was like, why? Why is all this happening? What is up with this world? This world fucking sucks. And God was like, free will, babe, free will. Like, humans have free will, humans suck.
Yep,
This is just because of you
totally.
guys. And I was like, God damn it.
That's amazing. So cool. Yeah, so with the trophy wife, so the next day, and I know you know the story, the next day at yoga class, I was coming out of class and this girl was like, "So what do you do?" Like we had just met and we were, she's about my age, maybe a couple years older. And I'm like, and I'm looking at her, I'm like, "Am I really gonna say this to somebody?" I'm like, am I gonna say this? And I'm like, "Oh, I'm a trophy wife."
Oh
Did
my
I
God.
say that? And she was like her whole universe opened up. She was like, "Really?" She was like, "Well, my boyfriend does cocaine sometimes and it's really getting aggravating and I just can't do it anymore." And she's like, "Well, maybe I could do something like what you're doing." She's like, "I teach yoga a few days a week, but like it would be really nice to just be supported and just be able to do my yoga." And I'm like, "Yeah." And I could see the woman behind me who had heard our conversation. And she was somebody who like wouldn't be like a super like friendly, warm, letting people in. But when I told the other girl that I was a trophy wife, that woman burst out laughing. And now
Yeah.
whenever I see her, and this is years have passed, she just like looks at me and smiles. Like somebody who was super serious, it just disarmed her. And
Wow.
I was like, that's
That's
really,
amazing.
yeah, it's really powerful. That's another thing I really like about access is like we always are looking at like, what can I say to somebody? Like
Mm.
exactly what do I need to say to somebody to create exactly the result I want to create with them? And never like we call it manipulation, but never to make somebody less or hurt somebody. Always to tell
Yeah.
somebody what they need or spark something in somebody so that they can become greater, so that your relationship can become greater. So it's a little
Yeah.
manipulative, but it's beautiful because you're telling people things that are sparking really obscure diverse possibilities in them and like giving them a greater like sort of willingness to be themselves or have fun or whatever it is. So,
You know what I love about that is that what healers and coaches are already doing, but in such like a loud way of like, you need this or you need that in order to unlock this and that. But I love one, focusing on the questions and also putting the power in the people, right? Like it sounds like it's not like you have an assigned teacher telling you all these things. You are basically self-healing, inquisitive of like finding what is best for your authentic path, your unique path. Versus like,
yep,
I think new age spirituality, the biggest reason I didn't get into it was because it just felt like religion with a different mask, where it was like, you have to be vegan, you have to do things a certain way, you have to, bypass the negative emotions. You have to do yoga, you have to do breath work, which like yes, like yoga and breath work are great tools. You don't need to be a certain way in order to access consciousness. Like consciousness is accessed through your own authentic connection to source consciousness.
totally. That is brilliantly put. And like one of the things that I really like is like, what's the purpose of life? And most people are like looking for their life's purpose, but the purpose of life is
Yeah.
just to have fun. That's the only
Yeah.
purpose. Just
Literally.
have fun.
Yes.
And it's like,
And the
we
more you
bog
play
ourselves.
with the universe, the more the universe provides.
Yeah, totally. Totally. That's so cool. Yeah. So I was just like, so I started looking at like, okay, being a trophy wife, and I just couldn't, I was just, what is this? Like, I had so much, it was so hard for me because I was
Yeah.
so, going down this whole other path of doing it all on my own. So as I started looking at this and facilitating myself on it and getting facilitated on it and looking at it, and it's just like really opened up the doors, not just between me and my husband, which it really has, and it's been amazing, but with me receiving everything and just being a softer, not that I'm soft, I'm pretty intense, but there's a softness that wasn't there in terms of being willing to receive and the worthiness, because it is all about the worthiness. And I think that like when we say trophy wife, in access consciousness, we're kind of creating a different definition of it, of trophy wife. It's about not needing to be right all the time, not needing to be in control all of the time, not needing to be so forceful, and not needing to get it right. And that's really the invitation of the trophy wife series is, what if there's just a softer and kinder way to live? And you kind of can think about it like, how do you be a trophy husband or a trophy daughter or a trophy friend? And it's just like, it's all about just being a contribution to the person and being what, they require and receiving from them in a really different way.
That's so beautiful. I love that. Thank you.
Yeah.
What was your husband's reaction when you first started calling yourself a trophy wife?
That's a good question. He was like, "Oh, I got to make more money."
Yes. Oh my God.
It actually
Yes.
sparked him to make more money, to be perfectly
Yes.
honest. I didn't even think about it
Same.
until you asked.
Same. And it
Awesome.
was the best thing because my husband loves being ambitious. He loves, having a purpose and a reason to have more money. But we were very comfortable before we lived apart. We had a very like good life, like no debt, beautiful apartment in New York, a car, like all the vacations we wanted. Like we were very comfortable. But like he always had this dream of like wanting to make a lot of money. Like money is like a big motivator for him. And I saw his energy dipping. And then it picked right back up as soon as I was like, I raised the bar of like, all right, now, like these are, I'm not by like asking, right? Not by like, hey, like you said, I think the biggest difference between takers and receivers is a taker asks for what they want, and a receiver just becomes a person who is again worthy of what they desire, and then the universe provides in the most miraculous ways.
Yeah.
So yeah, like me raising my self-worth, my self-confidence, my like again just like shattering the glass ceiling and expanding consciousness all around me, doing the work that our souls came here to do, which is expanding consciousness. You're going to be rewarded in the most miraculous ways, and that energy has to go into our partners because somebody needs to be bringing in, the money or whatever. And like, not to say that we're not making our own money, because obviously you have your own business, I have my own business, but we're not making money in the traditional sense that they are. And they want to provide us with all of our basic needs to be covered so that when we make our money, it's just extra cherry on top.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. And it's like there's such a greater level of receiving, and just like you said, it's just a worthiness thing. And it's like we don't deserve or not deserve anything. Like we don't deserve the air that we breathe. We just breathe. We don't deserve the money that we get. We just get it or we don't get it. It's certain, So there is no such thing as deserving. That's just a judgment. So it's like when you don't have to judge what you receive, you can receive everything.
That is, you just unlocked something in me. Thank you for that. That's so cool. Yeah, I agree. It's like, how can we just let go of all the judgments and just remain curious beings that are just like, what if?
Yes, exactly.
What if I can have whatever I want?
Yeah, exactly. 100%. Oh, it's so fun to speak with you and to get to share these ideas. It's just such a pleasure.
Oh my gosh, the pleasure is all mine. I have been honestly just so excited for this conversation because I haven't been as like public about this as you have. So I admire your courage so much of like you built an entire platform around normalizing this. And this is what feminine energy is all about, is like, how can we open ourselves up to receive more? How can we do the conscious work of putting the armor down off of each and every single energetic block that we have within our beautiful vessels and open up to simply receive more? And you're literally the embodiment of it, and you're doing it, and you have created an entire platform to normalize it. So thank you.
Thank you so much. When I first started 13 years ago, I was like scared. It was not easy. And people weren't as open like 13 years ago as they are now. Yeah, it was like I'm posting something.
You're a pioneer. Like, that's insane.
Yeah, I was like posting something and I was like, oh my God, what are the kids from my high school going to think about this? This is terrifying. And then eventually
I feel like that's where I am right now. So
yeah, just keep going. It totally goes away. But
I love
it's hard at the beginning. It's very hard. Like,
how did you get through that?
Well, we have something in Access that I use a lot, and it's called the clearing statement. And it's basically, it's right, wrong, good, bad, all nine, pod, poc, shorts, boys, povids, and beyond. And it's a short speak. There's a long explanation. And if you or if any of you guys watching would like a longer explanation, just go to theclearingstatement.com and there's like a 20-minute video explaining it. But it's basically a way to clear energy. You'll never clear something that's like the true essence of who you are, but you clear any limitations or like societal things that you're functioning from, or even from past lives, anything. I used that a lot. Like I would be like, okay, this is how you would say it. Everywhere I'm worried about other people's judgments, I destroy and uncreate it all. And then say the clearing statement, right, wrong, good, bad, all nine, pod, poc, shorts, boys, po, and beyond. If you do that like 10 times, it clears a lot of energy. And you just notice like a huge shift in a lot of space. It's
I kind of already feel an energy. I feel rumblings in like my solar plexus right now. Like you saying that's awesome. So weird.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So, and there's a book about that really goes into the clearing statement, and it's by my super cool friend Dane, and he wrote this book. He's the most kind, amazing, powerful, super good looking, cool. He's awesome. And he is a wonderful access facilitator. And he wrote this book called Being You, Changing the World. And he goes into the clearing statement and how it's basically your magic wand to change anything. So it's a great book. We can I don't know if there's show notes or something, we can put a link.
Yes, I'll drop it below for sure. Thank you for sharing that. So, how is it with your parents? Because I feel like that's a big one where a lot of people are like, especially people that have grown up in certain households with like religion or whatever, and now they're realizing that there is a whole world beyond religion, right? That's how I like to see consciousness work, is just like the next level, the evolution of religion, where like religion is like God outside of you, and then you realize that Jesus's entire teaching has been that God is within you and the kingdom of God is within you. So then you realize that you are God
Well,
and all
that's
that.
so
So
beautiful. I love that. Yeah. So, yeah, that's a great question. Parents, a real world, like, oh God, what am I gonna do here? Um,
yeah.
I I mean, my mom is super cool and is so easy on me, and she was like a Reiki master and had stacks of books about ghosts and channeling and psychics, and so she's all about it. My sweet dad, he's like, what does my daughter do? What has she been doing for the last 13 years? He's like, she was the top of her class in high school, the top of her class in college. Why is she not a doctor or a lawyer? Like, what's going on? This is so sad.
Like he's married to a woman who is so into this
And
world. Like you would think that
yeah,
he like,
calls my sister and my mom and I his three witches in a very loving way.
oh my
And
God,
he
I
loves it.
love
And
that.
it's really cute. He's so sweet and he's such a loving dad. I have like the most I work with people through traumas and all kinds of stuff. So I know that
Yeah.
like I am in the whatever tiniest percent of people who have the most beautiful, wonderful parents. And my dad is like the freaking best in the world. But at the end of the day, he's like, oh my God, like, what is going on? I could just feel him, but he's sweet. He's silent. He doesn't ever make me wrong. But you always want to like do that thing that your dad wants you to do, become
100%.
that,
Yeah.
fulfill that for him. But
Yeah.
just again, I've used a lot of clearing statements. We have something in Access called the bars, and it's 32 points on the head, and it's like an hour session. And so you like work on somebody's head, and it's like defragging a computer. It takes away thoughts, feelings, and emotions. Because basically it's like we say, like, when you're thinking, you're stinking. Like you don't want to be thinking at all. You like want to get rid of your mind. You can like use your brain, but like the mind is so degenerative and dangerous and vicious, and so it's about like clearing that out and changing that. So what I actually do is I like force my dad to let me run his bars, and that the last few times that I've done that, we did it to like very specific movies that were designed to clear the past lives that me and my dad had together. Because a lot of the issues that we have with our parents are like when you were married to your parents, when your parents were your child, so there's like so much stuff and so much energy from the past that you need to clear. So the bars are a really good way of clearing that. And I have to say, since I did my dad's bars the last couple of times to certain movies designed to like clear those points of view, it's been so much easier, because it was like I'd been doing Access for like 11 years and I'd still be like, oh my God, like what does my dad think of that? Or I'd get really happy
Well,
and I'd be like, I just want to share all of this happiness with my dad. And I'm like, oh, but wait, I can't, because that's just not what, he doesn't have the infrastructure for that. And I'm just like, oh,
yeah.
but my dad, I love my dad so much. And so that's really like settled. And I think that
Yeah.
since it's settled, my dad has gotten happier because I wasn't putting that projection on him anymore. You know how that works.
Yes. Yes, yes, exactly. Wow, that's so beautiful. And the way that you say that is what I like to say is we're here to heal and close these karmic loops so that our souls can move on to the next step, right? And it sounds like exactly what you
Exactly.
said is like, you know, that's the soul work we're here to do at the end of the day. It really is not like how much money can we make and how much can we have and how amazing our life can be. All of that is a byproduct that we receive once we dedicate our lives to doing the soul work that we came here to do, which is relationships. It's our relationships with our parents, our friends, our strangers, the impact that we create on the world by expanding consciousness. And it's like, once you realize that the entire point of the patriarchy is to make people believe that money is the end all be all, and once you have it, you'll be happy. Once you don't, you'll be miserable. People start to really destroy and sabotage and disconnect from these relationships that you're supposed to work through the difficult things. But so many of us are so quick on like cutting off these ties so that we can get to the top. And it's very like self-serving in that way. And like, you know, if that's the path that you choose, great, but your soul is going to have to come back and do that work over and over and over again until you choose to do the work.
Yep, totally. That's great.
And you can be stuck
whatever you've studied is like really fascinating.
It's actually all just within. It's
Cool.
just sitting with plant medicine and just receiving all this information. You should see my journals. They're just like covered in all these notes and messages.
Wow, good for you. That's amazing.
I mean, all of us have access to this. I tried to tell Carly that since she started. I'm like really excited to see Carly's like greatest evolution of her, because she's the most brilliant person that I know. And of course you are equally as brilliant, which makes so much sense. So it's been such an honor and a joy chatting with you.
Thank you. You too, Sana.
So how can my audience find you, and like what is Trophy Wife exactly, and how can they tap into that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I have a website, so it's juliasotas.com. And on there, I have a monthly membership called the Trophy Wife Membership. The tagline is, as Trophy Wives, what's required of us? And so that's a monthly club that I do every month. And we get together on a Zoom and we talk, and there's a WhatsApp group, and I share things. I do classes, and there's a lot with that. But I don't know if I would do that without taking the basic access tools. What you can do too is just like, we'll also put in the show notes, accessconsciousness.com. A great place to start was that book, Being You, Changing the World. It's very fun. The first time I read it, it was just like eating candy. I was like, Carly and I each got our own copy because we were like, wow, we cannot share this. And we both like read it in like the first few days, like in 2 days.
Wow. I'll borrow it from her.
Yeah, it is such a freaking good book. So that's a great place for people to start, is probably just by reading that book. And then from there, like the first class in Access is the 1-day bars class, the hands-on process I was talking about doing on my dad. There's a lot of facilitators in LA. You guys can reach out to me. I'm available. People can call me or text me or email me. Often when people email,
where are you located?
I live in South Carolina, actually.
Okay. And then do you have to be in person to do that, or can you? You
do have to be in person to do the bars.
Okay.
Yeah. There's awesome people in LA who do it. You can get sessions or just take the 1-day.
But maybe
class.
we'll invite you for like one of our events that we're going to be hosting.
I would love that. That would be really fun. I'm excited about what you guys are doing with the Growth Club and all of that. I know. Carly and I share a Canva, and I was like, what's this?
Oh, yeah. I know. I've been adding you to all my Canva graphics.
Yeah. So cool.
Yeah. No, I'm so excited about Growth Club. If you guys are listening, so I just started my next venture, which is called Growth Club. Yeah. And it is a place to gather with conscious leaders to chat about various topics like finances, career, relationships, personal development, just like anything and everything that can make you a better human being in society.
Cool. And is it in person?
It is in person, but we do have a virtual membership component where I'm going to be hosting, like you are, these monthly calls where we chat about things. I'm offering, hot seat group coaching calls to the community. And
so cool, you guys.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all Carly. I would not have been able to do this without her push. She's the greatest gift to me from the universe. I feel like it is so divinely, like perfectly came into my life exactly when I needed it. And like,
that's so cool. I'm so glad you guys have each other, and just meeting you and getting to see how amazing you are. And I agree. Carly she's just such a kind, brilliant, peaceful, wonderful I'm so lucky that I got her
And
at
she's
this.
also like a shark. Like she's
And she's
like
a
a
shark. And
pusher.
she's a
Like
shark.
she,
She's
yeah.
totally that, all of that too. You're absolutely right.
Which I need. I need like someone to be like, all right, come on, let's do this. Let's do this. I'm like, okay, I'm coming.
Like, I can't even with her. Like, when she was like 17 or something, she was like living in New York writing her book. And I came to visit and we were like all going to this like cool event on Long Island. And she's like, I'm just going to stay here and just finish writing my book. And I'm just like, okay. Like, she's like,
She's
she just is a
amazing.
mover. She just gets it
Yes.
done. It's crazy.
I love it. I know. I'm so lucky to
Yeah,
have her as a partner.
totally.
Amazing. Well, thank you again so much for your time, for your energy, and your wisdom today. And I will be sharing all the ways to contact you and get into your world in the show notes. So, guys, if you're interested in connecting with Julia or doing, the consciousness work, I will be dropping all those links and check it out. And thank you for tuning in.
Bye, everybody.